Yeah, that's one thing I never really understood growing up is like the different like region versions of games. And it's like I understand that each version has its own like unique like what's the word? Its own unique set of features in which it's different from like the American versions. Like for example, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the Japanese version of Super Mario 64, what you can do is when you fight Bowser, when you go to pick up the key, you can actually go to first person and then like look around, and then when you go to pick up the key, Mario's head will actually stay in that position. And I actually remember watching videos of people doing that, and they position his head to where after he does the like peace sign, it looks like he's just dabbing.
Oh,
But
oh,
that's but that's just one of the things that I distinctly remember. Because another thing that I remember was going back to SSX, one of their games, SSX Tricky. In the PAL version, which is the European version, one
mhm.
of the characters, Mac, he's actually replaced by an alternative character named Marty, who I suppose in the SSX universe is Mac's cousin and is a veteran in the SSX sport. So,
Hmm.
and it's interesting that he's a playable character in SSX 3, and it's like, well, that's kind of cool. It's like bring back some of the original characters as secret playable characters, but it's like, yeah, it doesn't really kind of fit the whole like it doesn't fit the whole roster when you're just playing as a generic character
Yeah.
and they don't really say anything either. So it's like, yeah, just dead silent, just staring off into the void.
You want a secret character now? Or you have to pay $20 for a secret character.
Oh my God, don't even get me started, dude.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, Fioko, up next, what do you got for us on your list? Because I know we won't be able to. Because I know you have a thing to do. Like I think what you said, you have a thing to do around seven or so.
Yeah, so I would have to leave it like six.
Okay, well this won't be. This will be. This will. We're only gonna do this till like another 20 or so minutes.
Okay.
Uh, what else you got
Uh,
on your list of unheard of or underrated?
I am going to go a bit further back, to the Sega Genesis add-on, the Sega CD.
Take a seat. Oh wow.
Yeah, no, like I said, I got some ones on here that are old. Uh, so for those who don't know, there was a subgenre of video game that came out when CD technology was uh, a newer technology called full motion video or FMV games, where it was just essentially a pre-recorded track, and you'd have to hit a button sometimes. That way, you could tell that you were interacting with the footage.
Oh, well, like when they would like use like actual actors and put them in like in a video game, right?
Yeah. Um, or even just fully animate sequence like Dragon's Lair is probably one of the more famous ones.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but talking about the Sega CD drive reminds me of the old like Zelda CDI games.
I'm so hungry, I could eat an Octorok.
Gotta get some water.
My
You guys,
boy.
you
If
guys
you
discuss
hold down, you can make me duck walk. Cool, huh? Anyway,
this
so
is
full
in the game.
yeah, um it on the Sega CD there was a company known as Digital Pictures who made games like Night Trap and Sewer Sharks, which a lot of those
Night
could
Trap.
be.
Oh God, with all the girls that from that game from the late '80s,
Yep,
with the multiple like TV screens to make sure they don't get captured by the kidnappers.
exactly.
I saw that on a clip of X Play back in the day.
Yeah, no, a lot of people remember it as one of the games that got the US Congress to enforce them to make the age ratings and whatnot. That in Mortal Kombat.
The video game versions of the MPAA
Yeah.
is how we got games. That's how we got games called rated AO.
Yeah, the Electronic Software Ratings Board.
ESRB.
Yep.
The ESRB.
Thanks,
ESRB.
Thanks a lot, Mortal Kombat.
The funniest part about those congressional hearings is the then Nintendo president at the time went, Night Trap and yada yada will never appear on a Nintendo console. And the first way that I played Night Trap was the 25th anniversary edition on the Nintendo Switch.
Alrighty then.
Like, I get that's 20, almost 30 some odd years apart, but that's so funny that in front of Congress, he went on record as to saying, yeah, this will never happen.
Many years later, it happened.
Yeah. But I bring up digital pictures because there is one game that I like the best out of all of them. I think it worked the best. It was a game known as Double Switch.
I have never heard of this.
Yeah, it had a pretty big name cast. Like, it had Corey Haim as one of the leads. It had Debbie Harry of Blondie. Arlie Emery was also in there. But it involves this hotel apartment house mansion thing called the Edward Arms, which is this multi-floor living complex, I'll just call it, that has a bunch of traps in each room, and there are people who are constantly trying to break in, and you have different cameras that you flip between, and then you can set, ready, load, and then arm the trap. But of course, you have a power gauge, so you can't set too many traps at one time. And there are all these different characters like Brutus and Alex that you can just jump around and watch their stories. And it's very entertaining. I would highly recommend, if you don't want to take the time to figure out what you're supposed to do and when, just look up like Double Switch, the full movie.
Wait, there's a movie?
No, it's just somebody taking all the scenes that have the story bits and
Okay. I'll if I can find like footage from a YouTuber, I'll make sure to credit them because I doubt I can. I'll be sure to show like a little clip.
yeah. Recently, I think it was Screaming Villains. They seem to have gotten a hold of a lot of the old master tapes that Digital Pictures had, and have been doing re-releases of Corpse Killer and Double Switch and Night Trap. So if you do want to check it out, it's on PC, PS4, and Nintendo Switch, and PS5 because,
I mean, it's so weird hearing how like back then they kind of do it to this day, but not as often. Where they would have games that were like basically live action, like you're watching a show, and they would film like multiple scenes. Like there was one called Night Shift. I think it was an Xbox 360 title. Another one. It's not really underrated because you can easily find it on Game Pass. It's oh god, I can't remember the name of it, but it has Lance Reddick in it, and the guy who played in Ferris Bueller's Day Off as Ferris Bueller's friend.
yeah.
Right. Quantum Break. It's a game that has both, game in-game play footage and then like certain cutscenes are like you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
because they rarely make games like that nowadays where they'll show like gameplay footage and then like they'll go right into like live action stuff that they like film.
Yeah, the last game I heard of that wasn't just a re-release or a release of a game that never came out was, I want to say, The Quiet Man, which that game is a whole nother can of worms.
All right, I have a game you both may have heard of,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of bummed that we never got the 360 sequel because there hasn't been a game in that series in a long time. Are you guys familiar with the Oddworld franchise?
Yes.
Like
The
Dungeons and
Oddworld Odyssey games. Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
um, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, right? Where you play
Yes.
that alien bounty hunter, where you get all these weird little creatures as ammo, like the furry little gremlin thing that attacks the face, the spider.
Yeah, the fuzzles.
Mm-hmm. Um, Hishan, do you remember Oddworld Stranger's Wrath from the Oddworld series?
I can't say that I have because I'll be honest, my co my history with the Oddworld games is kind of hit or miss because it's like I know some of the games growing up, and I remember wa- going back to that Jet Set Radio racing game disc. It actually had a trailer for one of the Oddworld games. I just can't remember. It
I'm
was like
totally.
Uh,
Abe something.
Oh, Abe's Odyssey.
Yeah.
I
It's
think it
the.
was Munch's Odyssey because Abe's
Oh yeah.
Odyssey was on PlayStation 1.
Oh, yeah. It was the Xbox One because I remember like the poster or something showed Munch holding like an energy drink can or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that was Munch. Yeah, that was Munch's Odyssey. It same universe, just different characters. Munch and Abe were like the main ones, and then the Stranger was just a side game.
Yeah. It's funny that you mention Stranger's Wrath because I have a soft modded original Xbox. I've had it for at this point a few, a few decades. Um, but my friend and I were trying to install the Xbox HD Plus into it. We screwed up it, so I need to send it out the Xbox to get repaired. But before that happened, I was actually recording and scripting out a challenge video, which was a Oddworld Stranger's Wrath pacifist run.
Basically, no killing.
Yes.
I'm trying to
There's a
picture.
So good luck with that.
there's a reason why nobody has done it yet.
It's like speed running, except you're not killing anyone.
Yeah, no, I want to say I got about three-fourths of the way through the game, and I'm just stuck in this arena where they have all these different bomber guys coming at you, and then they have all the different archers from above that you're supposed to kill, and then the actual boss who's just running around waiting for his forces to whittle you down. And it's just like, how do I do this?
Why is this not working?
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Speaking, I remember reading it in it was around again. It was the Xbox 360 era, so it was like one of the older copies of Game Informer. You know
Mhm.
that I have like over I think 30 Game Informer magazines up to issue. I'm not kind of looking issue 303, 304 up to 340. So I have like roughly 300, like the 300 issues, the 300 era
Nice.
issue of Game Informer. But I remember seeing like this concept art for a Oddworld game that was supposed to come out for the 360. Like it looked like some like mob era type uh game because the concept art looked like it would take place in a city or something. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be a sequel to Stranger's Wrath for the 360, but it never happened. like they were supposed to make like a sequel or something, but here's concept art and Game Informer. That's all you're getting. Do with that what you will, basically.
Yeah. It looks like that might have been Fengus Clot. The Brutal Ballad of Fengus Clot.
Probably. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, I don't think it ever got made.
Yeah. All right.
Back to
Anybody
you,
else?
Oh yeah, Keyshawn. Back to you now.
Well, I guess I can flip back to 1080 because 1080 was one of those nostalgia games where it's like when the original 1080 came out, it was a lot of fun, and it's like doing the match races was fun.
Again, I've never heard of 1080. I'm like familiar with like AMP and SSX.
Yeah. I have seen footage of 1080 snowboarding, but like I said, I was never one for extreme sports games.
Sure. Actually, I want to go back to you, Keyshawn. Were there any games that you know of were supposed to get like a sequel or something, but never got one, or a game that like you remember playing, but like you probably only ever played it once, and then like years later,
Oh,
oh,
Kishan is Kigan.
it happened before the internet, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Um. Well, we're waiting for Keyshawn to come back. Um, Back to you, Fioko. What's again? I know you have this list, but like what I talked about with Oddworld, was there like an unheard of sequel for a game that was supposed to be made, but it never came out, or a sequel for a game that no one expected the sequel to be made, like when you talked about Blinks 2.
Yeah. Um, for sequels, I'm not entirely sure. Hmm. Cause like I have some games on my list that are sequels to games that more people might have heard of that didn't know they had sequels. Like if you got the Sega Genesis Mini, you might have played a game called Beyond Oasis, but there was actually a Sega Saturn exclusive sequel called The Legend of Oasis.
I've never.
Also, yeah, it's a top-down action adventure game. Um, if I were to compare it to two other things, think of a mix between classic Legend of Zelda and Prince of Persia.
Oh, like side. Well, when I think of Prince of Persia, I think of side scrolling.
Yeah, but I'm saying like take the style of Prince of Persia, but then put it in that top-down sort of aspect.
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with top down. I haven't played many top down games, and then when I think of like top down, I think of like Final Fantasy VII or the old GTA games back in the day.
Yeah, like GTA 1 and 2.
Old GTA games.
Yeah. Um I could talk about games that have sequels that were left in Japan.
Might as well, because it again, this is called underrated and unheard of.
Yeah. So in the arcades and on the Saturn and Dreamcast, there was a series known as Virtual On. The first one was Virtual On Cyber Troopers, and the second one was Virtual On something. But it was a game where you took control of different mechs. It was a 3D arena fighter Um, I believe as of right now, while the Xbox 360 storefront is still up, you can get Virtual On 2 on the it is backwards compatible with like the Xbox Series and Xbox One. But after those first two titles, there were three more that came out in Japan. The last one was a collaboration with a Japanese light novel. But ever since uh that second Virtual On game on the Dreamcast, none of them have been brought over to the United States. And that's unfortunate because, when you hear like a full 3D Mech Arena Fighter, you might think of something like Mech Assault from the original Xbox,
I
where
was
it's
gonna say Mech. I've played Mega Solid. I don't know if Sean can come back on because they have blackouts going on. So we'll probably wrap this up here shortly.
all right.
But I remember Mech Assault. Was there a sequel for Mech Assault?
There was.
Okay, I remember playing the first Mech Assault game from back in the day, like for a 360, because it was like one of those. It was like one of those games. Like I think it was like a demo that you can like another game because that was the thing.
Yeah, the Virtual On games, all the mechs have like jetpacks, so they go super fast. It is really fun. And to sort of wrap it up on my end, I will talk about another mech type game for the original Xbox this time that we talked about beforehand. It is called Metal Wolf Chaos. Not many people have heard of this game because it was a Japanese exclusive original Xbox game, which is essentially like saying it's an Xbox game that never came out.
I think the thing going on. We're talking about a lot of Xbox games.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it. I've played more Xbox than other consoles. There's another game I want to talk about when you're done talking about yours.
Yeah, this is another game that recently got a DX release on Steam and whatnot. But you play as the President of the United States, just some not based off of any real person, just think of like a stereotypical like dude bro American patriotism president, and there you go. And you're essentially fighting your political adversaries um in this giant mech, and you fly around and save the United States. And it's so funny because I think it would have done well if it came over to the US, but
It just would have been called United States Simulator at that point.
yeah.
I'm sorry, that sounds like the fucking truth.
Yeah, no, YouTuber Bumbles McFumbles did a really funny video going over that game recently. Which would be a way that more people would have heard of it, but I heard of it before the remaster came out.
There's another game that speaking of mech type games, it was for the Xbox. I want to say mid Xbox era. So I would play I wouldn't play a story mode. I would more so play the multiplayer of it. It was called Metal Arms,
Ooh,
where you would play as a robot who has no memory of who they are and what they did before. And
yeah.
they would bleep out all the cuss words. There was characters called I can't remember the one name, but it was a name I used for a while. The other, and they were two characters, robot brothers, I think, one small one big one. They can go to and buy items from during the main game. I can't remember what one was called, but the other was called Mr. Pockets.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
And like during like when me and buddies we used to play like the multiplayer, one of like when one enemy would when like one player would kill the other, it's like saying you and they and each individual character had like different, each like robot had different names. So it's like saying you got like when when the character would shoot you and kill you, it would say you got screwed by hosed. I don't know if Gishan's coming back on because they have connection issues, which is always a thing on this. I guess
Yeah.
To end this, with all these games we've talked about, with all these games we talked about, or games we haven't discussed, Could you see any of them making a comeback with either a remastered or a sequel?
I could definitely see that happening. Sorry, I just had some Discord weirdness.
Oh, good.
I certainly could see it. Like, especially like I said, with all these different remakes coming out, like the Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series, and um, my brain should be coming up with more examples that I can't think of.
The
Uh,
Final, the Final Fantasy trilogy that's coming out.
yeah, uh, it's certainly a time where games that didn't get as much love or attention could come back. I'm not entirely sure about Blink's coming back because Artoon was uh, merged into another company in like 2011,
And a good
and
chunk,
then
a good chunk of these companies have been defunct for like years now.
yeah. So who knows? Maybe it just costs like half of a PB&J and a couple of pop caps to buy the name, you know, Gex, which I know Limited Run Games just recently announced a Gex.
Isn't that a video game, Gex?
Yep, yep. It was a trilogy of games by
Where,
the 3DO company, I believe.
where you're playing as a spy gecko, it's like James. Oh God! Speaking of another unheard of game,
Yeah,
I feel like it's both unheard of and underrated.
yeah,
I would like to see like I would like to see a Gex game, but like not just like how it was a side scrolling, but like, you know, 3D,
yeah,
rotate around. I mean, it'd be kind of like wondering, okay, well, what can we do with like a bigger environment, not just a side scrolling environment where we can just have a as a background and
yeah.
then like the characters look 3D-ish.
Yeah, I mean, Gex 2 and 3 were 3D platformers, and I believe those are the ones that are getting remastered. Or it could be all three, I don't know. Limited Run Games hasn't really revealed much since the announcement.
That'd be nice. What I would like to see personally, because BioWare apparently only loves their Mass Effect and Dragon Age. I would love to see a sequel to Jade Empire, or I
Yeah.
would love to see a third installment of Knights of the Old Republic. Because apparently, word is, I don't know how true it is, but there was a rumor flying around how the first Knights of the Old Republic was supposed to get a remaster for the PS5 and Xbox Series, but I don't know how true that is. I mean, not a remaster, a reboot.
Yeah.
It was a rumor, but who knows if that's still a thing since the mouse has taken over Star Wars.
Uh,
Can't think of anything else that's gone for an hour, and with Keyshawn, um, well, like with the internet connections, I can't think of any other games because again, a good chunk of the games I remember were Xbox games that haven't seen the light of day in years. When I think of
uh,
PlayStation, when I think of PlayStation games, I think of the more popular ones.
yeah.
Is like Final Fantasy, the Legos, not well, it was both Xbox and PlayStation, but like the old Harry. Well, I mean, there's also the old Harry Potter games too, that the ones that came out for PC and PS1 and
Yeah.
Xbox, which I find funny. The PS1 version, so the first, how was it? I think PS2 version, the PC version, and the PS2 version of Harry Potter games were all different. Same with
Yes.
the PC and the PS1 version of the first Harry Potter game. They were completely different games. Same premise, just everything was changed to fit
Yeah.
that specific console. Nowadays, you don't see that. Like nowadays when they release a game for this console, that console, that console, all the same. Back then, certain games like I'm sure not many people are familiar with this, but the PSP version and the Xbox 360 version of Force Unleashed, the Force Unleashed, two entirely different games. PSP version is
Yep.
longer than the console version, but I imagine the reason why the console version is so longer because the time it took them to make the level where you have to bring the Star Destroyer down.
Yeah.
Is my theory because like, why is the PSP version longer than the? Again, for those who have a PSP, or if you still own one, I don't know anyone who owns a PlayStation Portable anymore. But
It's funny that you mentioned a PSP because I do have one more game that
Yeah.
this reminded me of. But finish what you were saying first, and then we'll hop into that.
But yeah, no, like I was saying, for those who if anyone gets a chance, go on YouTube, watch gameplay for the PSP version of the Force Unleashed, and then watch the Xbox 360 version because the Wii version is the same as the 360 version. The PS2 version is the same as the PSP version, mainly due to the fact that in both the Wii and 360 version, you're both having to manually take the ship down instead of watching a cutscene of the ship just crashing down and that's it. Personally, I prefer taking the entire ship down instead of watching a cutscene. But I also prefer the game to be longer and not short, like both Force Unleashed games were, and that's why I don't think we ever got a third one because the sequel just didn't do well, and the sequel was super fucking short.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But speaking of PSP, I noticed that we were focusing a lot on home consoles and particularly the original Xbox, which that's fine. We had a lot to say on it.
But yeah, no,
But
we weren't talking about handheld consoles, and
yeah,
I can think of a few too.
the one that I will mention is Deadhead Fred for the PlayStation Portable. It was a
That
yeah. I get that reaction a lot when I talk about this one. Um, it was a comedic, I guess, horror themed type game where you're playing as this. I want to say it was like a alien type creature where you could just rip your head off and throw it onto other people's bodies, and it was sort of a strategy game.
Oh, you're playing. Okay, I know what game you're talking about. Wait, no, I'm not the one where the zombie looks like he's from the 1940s. Is it?
No, that's Stubbs the zombie.
Okay, all right. When you were like saying comedic, throwing like I thought. Wait, is he talking about? But that was for PS2.
Yeah, that was for PS2 and original Xbox. Yeah,
Okay.
no, Deadhead Fred is well, it also has a 1940s noir aesthetic, but yeah, no, you excuse me, you don't throw your head onto different people's bodies. You have a different set of heads that you're able to switch between.
Okay.
Um but yeah, no, like Stubbs the Zombie's more comedic tone in a horror setting. Deadhead Fred is one of those where, you know, like you either have a brain in a jar or like an alien head, or I think you're able to like, you know, take control of other people and eat their brains. That way your brain gets stronger.
Okay. Okay, I've again I've never heard of Deadhead Fred. What the premise you were talking about reminds me of Stubbs Zombie, which I didn't know the name. Again, a game that is a game I feel like a game is unheard of is Stubbs Zombie.
Yeah. That's another one that got a re-release, which is why I didn't have it on my list. But I was just like, Deadhead Fred, that's very similar, but even less people know about it because it was on the PSP.
Another game people may not remember that was on the PSP. Might as well put my 2 cents in for handheld because I can't think of the name. again, I'm gonna if you have any honorable mentions, someone ask Keyshawn as well to send me a list of honorable mentions so I can show like the cover of the game. I'm gonna put at the end saying here are like top 5 honorable mentions that weren't shown, and I'll like make a list of names. Oh,
Yeah.
it was part of. It's the solo game, Daxter for the PSP.
Yeah.
Where it's basically takes place after the first game, immediately after the first game, and then before the second game, where you're basically playing as Daxter on his quest to save Jack. And it literally takes, and then it takes place before the after 1, before 2, and after 3. Because of the epilogue, where he's basically telling the story of how he saved friend Jack and became this bug hunter type thing for the not Lombax, Ocelotl, I think he's what he is.
I wouldn't be able to tell you because I haven't played the Jak and Daxter games in a long time.
Which I think also I feel like Jak and Daxter. I think the last time we got a Jak and Daxter game was Daxter, because before that was that Jak Racing one that we got for the PS2.
Oh yeah, like it was Jak X and then Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier or whatever.
I think so. I think that is it. I can't think of any more games off the top of my head right now.
All right, and I just sent my honorable mentions to the.
I'll have Keyshawn send me a list too, and we'll pick like, I don't know, top six honorable mentions, 2 of yours, 2 of his, and 2 of mine. Also, for those who are watching this, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section of a game that you think is unheard of or is underrated. Also, real quick, because I always do this with everyone, care to drop your links below so people can follow you on Twitch, Instagram, wherever social medias you are available for?
Yeah, pretty much my only like public social media is YouTube. I just use my Twitch account to moderate my friends' Twitch chat, but yeah, no. You can follow me on YouTube. It is at MaxCVA. I'll probably leave a comment or something, or you can put it in the description.
I'll have you send me a link, and I will put it in the description below too.
All right. Sounds good.
And it sucks that Keyshawn left, because I would have loved to hear his 2 cents on these other games.
Yeah.
I think that should do it again. Fioko, thank you for coming on, and also I want to thank Alex. I want to thank them for mentioning you, and I'll definitely be sure to have you on for more. Okay.
Yeah.
And you all know. Oh, away ads. All right. Anyway, I'm Wayne the Unknown. Until next time, thank you for listening, and as always, thank you for.